So I'll start off with the last bit, which you're saying, the environment has conditioned you or any one of us strongly. I would suggest that we've conditioned ourselves. The environment is what it is. And the conditioning may or may not have been conscious. It might have been unconscious. But no one has, that power over us. So we might not have been conscious, but, certain decisions we've made have allowed certain things to be shaped in certain ways, so therefore they become conditioned within us. So let me get to the actual question you're asking, which is, the crux of it, right? Like, how come I get into survival mode when I'm at home, let's say, or with the closest people in my life? I would say, from my experience, it's because the people closest to us, normally, if it's home environment, family has, let's say, emotional history. Don't think I've said it like that before, but whatever, just came out. So as in through timeline, right? So there's emotion that has been shaped over timeline, and not just emotion, but a certain narrative upon a narrative upon a narrative, like layers of the story that has been shaped, and very deep conditioning, even though as a child, it didn't feel like we chose it, obviously, but it got shaped. So why do we become most guarded around the people who we should feel maybe relaxed or safe around? And maybe it's not that they're unsafe, but then we feel the need to protect ourselves. And it's because of, I would say it's because of the years of what has happened and how things have shaped. And it's not like, you see the person and you go, okay, this person's coming, I need to act in this way. Like, it's not a conscious thing. It just happens in a split second. It is, that's a conditioning, right? So it's like shaped within us. And, so maybe around a certain person, I'm just giving a random example based almost on nothing, not anyone in particular. But let's say, maybe around someone, a certain person, you might find yourself being more grumpy or short-fused, like less tolerant, let's say. I've certainly had that, and I won't name names. And these are people that I love, right? And they're close to me. And I started to observe, like, why do I feel like, why do I act like that? Why do I react like that? A lot of the times it was unconscious, so I would find myself just reacting or acting in that way, or showing up, or even if I was kind of quite joyful, the moment that person, comes nearby, I just start to like tone the joy down and, turn up the grump, turn up the whatever resistance. And I started to see that. I was like, what? That's not, and the logical reason, like, I could logic the reason, but it's an emotional thing, right? Like, so around this person, I'm not going to show too much joy because maybe there was a time or many times when I was joyful and that person would, didn't, they had their own thing going on, so they didn't like it. So they tried to like, extinguish that. So put that down, right? Or tell you to put that down or tone it down. Or they get snappy when, you are kind of relaxed and joyful, for example. So those little things, this is a random example, but do you know what I mean? Like, those little things can actually over time accumulate and shape. So without thinking, we come in touch with a certain person or people or a group of people, and, you might have been quite joyful getting there, but the moment you get there, you see them, you're like, let's like put a lid on that straight away. And that's just one example of many. It doesn't shift until we make it conscious, and at least from my experience, consciously choose. Not so much even the analysis as in like, why is this happening? How come? And how many times? And when? And what, in what points in my timeline did this happen? And I don't have to analyze it, but I find like, okay, there might have been, the past, there's a past with this person because they're close to me. But how I'm showing up is not how I want to continue to show up. They might be less joyful, but I'm not going to tone down, my sense of, feeling free or open or calm or joyful around them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to let myself, be that, because that's where I feel most relaxed in, most natural in. So I'm going to let myself bring that me into these environments and let them, have whatever reaction or non-reaction, or, if it inspires them to be joyful, then amazing. If it makes them grumpy for a while, then fine. That's, they get to choose. So almost going back to, I think, what you might have heard me say many times over time, like, what do I want? What's this vision that I have for, my relationship with this person or people? And then is it what I want it to be from this point forwards, like the future? And if it's not, then how would I like to show up? How, what is it that I have authority over, which is how I show up, right? So how am I going to bring what I can bring to the table that might shift things? And I'm not trying to change them. I'm not trying to transform them. I'm not trying to make them more joyful or open or trusting or whatever. I just find that I'm not being me around them. I'm not being as relaxed as I just would be or would like to be, or I'd find myself being more relaxed around other environments and other people, but not around this person or people. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to be different characters with different people. I want to show up just me consistently across the board. So that's where my work is. It's like to drop whatever is in the way of me showing up as me, so if it's relaxed, if it's calm, if it's playful, if it's, curious, interested, kind, loving, whatever the thing is, and letting myself bring that. The resistance to bringing me, the resistance to bringing who I am, that's my work. How they show up in response to that, that's up to them. I don't have any control over that, and I don't want to have control over that. And that's up to them. A lot of times it changes them anyway. Like in this example, I found myself going from putting a lid on myself to actually lifting the lid off and just letting myself be me, just how I am normally. And over time, didn't take very long, they started to relax. They started to be more joyful, and actually just kind of we're both more relaxed. And that's just a deeper, love and connection with them anyway. So it normally does transform. But sometimes, it takes time, because maybe they have had certain things in the past, and then, they don't feel they can trust, or they don't feel safe enough, and they're not even thinking I don't feel safe. It's just, subconscious in how we show up. It's kind of the programming, the conditioning, as you say. So I hope that answers the question. Let me read the question again. So recently had someone say, more guarded, reactive, survival based actually within my home environment and close community, not because my heart isn't kind, but because something's protective comes online. Doesn't feel like trust expression of who I am. How do we begin softening the survival patterns? Yeah. And I would say it is, well said. It is the survival patterns. We go into some kind of survival mode, and that's the stuff that's not conscious within ourselves. So it's bringing awareness, bringing consciousness, just notice I'll show up like this with this person or people or in this environment. Not why, as in I need to analyze it, but is that what I want? And if it's not, then how do I want to show up? If it's more relaxed, okay, let me start now. Let me just let go of the grip or the resistance now. You might not be able to let go completely, but you start. Let me relax a little bit and practice relaxing a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. And over time, you just, how you are elsewhere is how you show up in this dynamic as well. And you're relaxed. And the why and, the why and the analysis kind of doesn't really matter, I find. Most of the time, it's what sends us in circle, chasing our own tail. in circles, round and round and round and round and round, not getting anywhere. Yeah, I find a lot of times the analysis not useful. Sometimes it is. Can be present in the environment. Yeah, and I think presence is the other word. Bringing awareness and getting present, because we're actually not present in those times. It's like something else is running the show. So I'm showing up as not me. So it's practicing, paying attention. And it's like, oh, funny, I show up like this in this environment. That's not how I want to. Or is this how I want to show up? And how do I want to show up in this dynamic? And where would I like this to go? Like, what's my vision for it? Doesn't mean they don't have a say, but you definitely have, part of the say, and they have part of the say. So you can begin shaping your part of it.